But after it comes public, listen, Tesla's a sell. You don't want to own this stock. You don't want to lease it. Heck, you shouldn't even rent the darn thing.
Tesla hasn't made any money. The prototype, you don't know yet whether or not you're going to be able to mass produce a company on the Model S. There's no distribution system yet. It almost seems as if investors are buying into your company on a leap of faith.
Heck of a lot
You're
of sense.
assuming that if they build it, they will be bought.
Right. The bet.
If Tesla is not
they wouldn't make a Tesla.
a viable business model on
This project started with the intent of figuring out whether or not my school could run off the power of the sun. However, it became much more than that. But first, solar. I've seen plenty of schools in the area with solar panels on their roof, so I wondered if mine could do it too. So, I reached out to a local solar installer to see what it could look like and how much it might cost.
My role here is as a solar advisor. So what I do is, if someone's interested in doing solar for either their home or like their school or business, I kind of do some preliminary project development, and then I'll take a look at the actual site virtually using the Aurora Solar program. So that allows me to take a satellite image and kind of make that preliminary design that I was just talking about. So there we go. So we can see these lower roofs do not have great solar potential. These high roofs with not a lot of shade from trees, those are the ones that we're going to be looking at. So you can see our TSRF as I move around here, it's about 83%, which is great. Good solar roofs, we're usually looking for TSRFs at least above 70%. Our next step here is to design the actual solar panel system. So we have, let's count, we have 240 panels. So that gives us a 78 kilowatt system. It's pretty good system. And then my last step here, once I've done designing things, I want to see how much power they'll generate over the course of the year. So this system can produce 82,000 kilowatt hours, and you can kind of see the breakdown. It's producing the most in June, 10.7 megawatt hours, and then the lowest in the winter. But so it sounds like this is probably not going to cover a good chunk of your electric usage. That's still not a problem though. There's a couple ways to go about it. Again, this is just a preliminary look, and we can fit solar panels, all around in these kind of nooks and crannies here. So we can actually make a larger solar panel system. We can do a ground mounted solar panel system, maybe even some covers over these parking lots. And then of course the other hand, you can increase the solar panel system size and then try to decrease your electric loads. So, doing an energy audit, making sure the building is insulated and not losing heating or cooling. So you definitely have a good space for a pretty good sized solar panel system. But again, thinking outside of the roof would be a good middle ground. Again, they're not final designs, so I wouldn't say this is what we can do,
With a rough estimate of 240 panels, this system would qualify as a commercial-sized solar installation. So, the big question is, how much would something like this cost?
Commercial-sized systems can range anywhere from $50,000 to hundreds of thousands of dollars. I would say yours is probably on the higher end, just because it's a 78 kilowatt system.
Although there is a large upfront cost, there are many ways to go about funding a project like this. A solar investment tax credit, for one, allows commercial solar owners to get back 26% of the cost on their taxes, which will eventually drop to 10% after 2021. But since Innovation is a non-profit organization, they are tax exempt and would not receive credit towards the cost of the project. One way of getting around this is through a power purchase agreement with a third party, where they pay for the construction and maintenance of the solar system, receive the federal tax credit, and the school pays them for the electricity produced. Not only would the school save money, they would know that the source of their energy is clean and lock in their price of electricity for many years to come. Now, it's no secret that I'm a huge Tesla fan. They are causing major change throughout the industry, and it is no longer a question if electric cars will go mainstream, it's a matter of when. Each time a traditional auto manufacturer unveils an electric vehicle, Tesla is accomplishing its goal.
Why do you want the competition?
The whole point of Tesla is to accelerate the advent of electric vehicles and sustainable transport. We're trying to help the environment. We think it's a most serious problem that humanity faces.
And while the Tesla killers have supposedly been coming for years, they have yet to show up. And even if they do, Tesla will have fulfilled its purpose.
So if somebody comes and makes a better electric car than Tesla, and it's so much better than ours that we can't sell our cars and we go bankrupt, I still think that's a good thing for the world.
Like I said earlier, I started this project figuring out if my school could install solar. Then I realized that in order to truly make a big difference, the community needed to shift too. There's a lot of negative press about Tesla, and it seems as if there's a driving force behind it. I wanted to hear from an actual owner to hear what their experience has been like.
My name is Eric Young, and I own a Tesla. There's a few things that I think I was susceptible to before I did my research. I think the major thing is that it's hard to charge and you need to worry about running out of battery. But for me, it's nice because I have free charging at my work. So every day I plug in at work, and so it's really like I leave work every day with a full tank of gas. So I get 310 miles, and so I really never have to worry about running out on my daily commute. And then on the weekends, if I'm ever driving anywhere, I just plug in at home, and it's really subconscious now of not having to even worry about it.
Not only do citizens need to start driving electric cars, but also the town services, such as transportation, fire departments, and police departments, which are some of the biggest contributors to carbon emissions. But could a police department really go electric? To find out, I drove 2.5 hours down to Westport, Connecticut to see the first Tesla Model 3 police car in the Northeast that was being shown at the local EV Car Club meeting. While there, I had the opportunity to meet Chief of Police Foti Koskinas, who took me on a tour of the vehicle and explained its features.
Concerns in the beginning was, would Tesla work with us? And we've come a long way. We have a non-compete, non-disclosure, which they're very strict about adhering. I mean, even the emails that go back and forth, every one of them is like, you can share this, you can't share this, you can share this, you can't share this. So far, they've been able to get us into the battery, and we're using everything with the car that comes. Every other department that we've talked to, what they were doing is using the hood for 12-volt batteries. They would get car batteries, put them in the front, hook all their lights and equipment to it. And then when it came time to charge, they would put the charger in and put a trickle charger in the front to charge the battery. So it wasn't part of the system. So that was a big deal. Full weapon system. Every police car in Westport has a rifle in it. And also will secure your sidearm in case you have to go into court, or if you're at the hospital for a detail that you can't have your gun. You can secure your gun in here, and a full rifle system, which is obviously very secure. I mean, you'd have to tear the car apart to get to it. I mean, everything in these two pillars on both sides are the antennas. So that's our radio system. You can talk from very far away, but there's no antenna sticking out of the car. The cameras, we're like 2 weeks away of using all the cameras as plate readers. So all the cameras in the car will be able to get plates and report back if there's a problem, and face recognition. So we're storing all the data because the cameras are far better than what we were putting in the cars. The only thing that we're having, and we're probably 6 months to a year out, we are using our own computer in the car, which I left to charge back at the station, not inside the car, that we plug in for all of our data, NCIC, people wanted, things like that. We are not using the computer. The goal is to use the one computer in the car for everything. But there's some serious security concerns because the government is obviously very protective of who can get into it from Tesla. Tesla is incredibly protective of who can get into their stuff on their computer once they give us access. One really cool thing, which we didn't think was going to be an issue, all of our medical equipment is in the front of the car.
Oh, in the front?
An officer went through a heart attack. He didn't know it was a heart attack. He was able to send people back to the car and open the hood from his phone.
Yeah, right.
It doesn't seem like a big deal. But, to be able to just, hit the button and tell them get the equipment out of the hood of my car is a pretty big deal. Yeah. We get rid of our police cars with about 120,000 miles. That, when you check and we get rid of the car, we have almost 30,000 hours of idle time on that car. So it doesn't seem like a lot of miles. You're like, well, 120,000 miles, cars can last a lot longer than that. When you actually do the math of what 30,000 hours of idle time is, that pushes in the 300,000 mile range of actual driving of the car. Now picture Those other 280,000 miles or 180,000 miles that the car's idling, it's on the side of the road on battery power. That's what we're trying to accomplish. Are we getting the desired outcome on the savings and the emissions and all the things? I think early on, there are very strong indicators that we are. Is it going to meet our demands, our use? I'm prepared that probably around 100,000 miles, if the car's holding up great, I'll probably have to replace a seat because of the gun belts and things like that. So there's some other things I know I will have to do. But ultimately, the car should really hold up. When you see the moving parts in a gas engine, and you see the lack of moving parts, we're talking 10, 12% of what a gas-powered car has. Those are the things that go wrong. Things that move are the things that break. So right now, the batteries that we have, they're saying, and they are monitoring them. That's another thing that Tesla is working with us, and they can dial right in. They're saying we should be losing between 1.25% to 1.5% of battery power per year. So even if you go to 10 years to still be in the 80s, we're doing pretty good. So a lot of times a lot of the questions I've had, and I'm glad it didn't come up, why don't you get a Chevy Volt, or why don't you get, we need the performance, and we need the crash ratings that outperform what we currently have. So what I tell people is just picture that a car goes by you at 55, you got to hit 75 to catch up to it. For us, there's a huge danger factor. The faster we need to go for the longer distance is the higher the risk. So the quicker we can accelerate and the shorter the distance to pull behind the offender is a safety issue. Yeah. What we're saying is it's safe. There's a huge safety issue.
Yet there will still be people who say it's not safe, such as that one time the Tesla ran out of charge during the pursuit.
Police drive some slick new Teslas, but apparently someone forgot to plug one in. The patrol car ran out of juice in the middle of a pursuit.
Oh, it's a good question. It's a funny question. We know it's going to keep coming up. It really comes down to preparation. First of all, we have some very strict policies in Connecticut about what and who we pursue. The other part of it is it's the officer's responsibility to make sure that the cars are fueled and adequate, especially when engaging in a pursuit. That could have happened. I don't know, but everybody wants to hear it, and they're going to say that it's no different than gassing up, and the gasoline car tells you have 300 miles. And you take the Tesla out when it's charged at 300 miles, and you know what you have for your shift or for the shifts to come. If that officer let it go down less than an eighth of a tank and got in a pursuit that went for 40 or 50 miles, it would have also ran out of gas. So I think it's an easy place to look at because we ran out of power. When the officer hits the lights and sirens and he's accelerating in and out of intersections and into turns, that mileage drops significantly. And we need to keep that in mind, that happens equally in the gas-powered car as it does in the electric car. People seem to focus like, oh my God, look how quickly it dropped in the electric car. Same thing is happening in the gasoline car. We can see it because it tells you that your average mileage, some shifts for these guys, is 7 to 8 miles per gallon because of the kind of driving they're doing. So when we look at the manufacturer puts out there, that is routine patrol driving at the speed limit at regular conditions. These cars are rarely driven at regular conditions. Right now, we're actually very happy how much battery life we're getting out of the car. We're getting 2 full shifts, which we're sort of on the fence. Will we be able to do that? And right now, our unwritten policy, just understanding of the officers who use it, at 30%, the car comes back in for charge.
So, how can your police department start driving Teslas?
As far as the Tesla, look, this goes a long way back in the town of Westport. When I first started taking over the fleet in 2007, I replaced 2 old police cars that used to do parking enforcement with 2 Priuses, hybrid Priuses at the time. Those were not plug-in, and since that time I've updated those. In 2012, I renovated our train station, the main train station down in Saugatuck in Westport, at which time the entire station was upfitted and it was powered by solar. So that was the first train station ever done in the country, and it continues to be. That is exclusive solar power, and we actually sell back to the grid. So there's a long history with the police department in the town. The town itself is very green. We banned plastic bags many years ago. Most recently, we banned plastic straws. They're encouraging composting, recycling, and a lot of green energy homes are coming in town. So it was not, the Tesla is only a little piece of the puzzle, but certainly just as important as all the other ones. Look, there's got to be a support from the community. This is not just a police officer decision. and there's got to be support from the town administration, meaning the mayor's office, the selectman's office, the boards of finance, RTMs. The different groups have to support the mission of the town. I would think in this day and age that everybody should be looking in that direction, and at the very least exploring. I don't think there'll come a time now, not in the very near future, that will be completely electric, because we always have to worry about grid shutdowns, the time to charge, things like that. But it would be irresponsible for us not to be looking at alternative fueling sources, even for police cars. It's a great conversation topic. People get pulled over, they get a ticket, and I can't tell you how much footage I have. Like, the guy gets a ticket, says, "I'm sorry," and says, "That's a cool car." That's certainly not what we got. But when it comes back to community relations, it's an icebreaker on top of being something that's working out well for us. Oh, and I'm not saying this because we're on the phone. Some of the best impression I've got was like meeting you and your family and some of the other people I've met through the club, because of your guys' passion, and that's sort of a driving force for me to keep doing things like this. We never looked at it as what impact, although we realize we are making impact and other people are watching what we're doing. We wanted to look at the overall impact. If we can change the little bit of our carbon footprint of what we do, and obviously police departments have more exposure than a lot of other businesses, industries. So if people see us doing it, maybe we can get the message out a little quicker and a little clearer that this might be a good idea for others to look in that direction. I definitely have a few more years here, and I want to leave my footprint and leave this place better than I found it.
While in Westport, I got to meet a lot of great people. One of them being Phil Levieff, a Tesla owner who, along with many others in the car club, was a driving force behind getting the town a Tesla Model 3 patrol car.
It's Phil Levieff. I'm the CEO and founder of Techno's Smart Living Ecosystems. Quite honestly, I've only driven maybe one other electric car besides a Tesla, but the Tesla gives you this amazing driving experience. You have lots of power at your disposal, an amazing amounts of control. And again, this electric car has the ability to provide early forms of autonomous driving. I don't even really classify it as a car. It's more of a connected device. It's a piece of IoT, and it uses predictive analytics, right? The radar and the sensors and the cameras to keep you safer. We all know the infrastructure is there with the supercharging network, right? We also know that the ability to go charge in your house is pretty easy to do. I think we're at this breaking point now. A lot of people think, it's a couple years away, it's 5 years away. It's here now, but it's really here now because of the one manufacturer, because they're well ahead of the competition. I think we'll see everybody's racing to catch up, and as that happens, the consumer will just transition. I think our country is still, we're very, very competitive group. Americans are extremely competitive, and I would tell you that maybe Americans, at least our country, parts of it want Tesla to fail more than other parts of the world. So their dealerships, right, all the other car manufacturers, they're trying to make a living, they're trying to sell cars, and if they know that their manufacturer doesn't have an electric vehicle that can keep up with how Tesla has built their car, from a battery, from a safety, then they'll likely try to do what they can to slow down the adoption of the car. Because once people start moving into a Tesla and start moving away from one of these other dealerships and cars, they may not be able to catch up. We're in this age of disruption, and there will be a number of car dealers that will fail. But you're starting to see that most have decided, let's transition now before it's too late. So you've got this competitive sense of other manufacturers, and then, the dealerships, a lot of them, they don't sell electric vehicles because they're not making money on them. And so they'll use whatever influence they can, and sometimes it's political, to slow down, Tesla getting a foothold, like in our state in Connecticut, where you can't buy a Tesla. But the bigger underlying fact is that the Tesla, specifically Tesla, or the electric vehicle, is the conduit to a completely different energy transition. Once you're in an electric vehicle, right, and you realize, I'm plugging it in at home and I'm still charging from the grid, well, you start to realize that there's a way to leverage solar to not only charge your car, but charge your house. And then there's battery storage that can store the energy of the sun and be used later. So there is this transition away from fossil fuels that countries, states have relied on and built infrastructure. So if you look further ahead, and I'm sure there are countries and companies that look at what this is and realize that if Tesla starts to move quicker, faster, and the adoption happens quicker, faster, well, this is the transition away from fossil fuels, and it can happen so much quicker. It can happen now, but like I said, there's a lot of people that are so competitive and so fixated on the dollar, right? And their stock portfolio that, they would prefer to just make money on shorting a stock than investing in, innovative American technology that saves the planet. I think one way or another, we're going to get there, but we need to get there a lot quicker. But also, I think, a lot of people try to knock that, the mining of the lithium and ion that happens is a very dirty process, and that, you're plugging your car in, so you're still drawing from the grid and you're still using lots of, dirty energy. And I think that is just, thrown out there in large sound bites, and it's a misconception. I mean, we know, at least here in Connecticut, the transportation industry accounts for 40% of carbon emissions. And granted, I'm sure there are some processes in the mining, and for sure you are able to, take some of the load from the grid to charge, but the benefits to the environment far outweigh the consumption of the grid or the mining. And as I mentioned before, the next step is, leveraging, more disruptive technology, solar, shared solar, ground mounts, that allow you to charge clean and transition. At your age, compared to when I was your age, I was playing Atari. I wasn't as into what was happening in the world, right? But there's so much more information, and you guys have it at your disposal, and you can see as clear as anyone else what's happening in the world and why, and realize that, you guys are inheriting this planet and where it goes. And we're at this very defining moment in history. Call it disruption of, politics, the environment, technology, health. It's all happening at this one moment in time. So, it has to be this kind of grassroots effort where, your classmates, let the children teach the parents in a lot of senses. And there is this kind of unifying generational connection that can happen once we get there. And it also connects the world together. We're in this global world war that some have acknowledged, but it's a unifying war. All the other wars have been country versus country, or, politic or religion versus religion, but this is one that we're all in together. And so if we all get behind it, and if we all come together, it ignites, this next industrial revolution, and these types of technologies to save the planet, to save the world, and to do right for you guys.
Remember this guy from the beginning?
You don't want to own this stock. You don't want to lease it. Heck, you shouldn't even rent the darn thing.
Well, look at him now.
But then my wife sent me an article this very morning about how Tesla's solar roof tiles are now as cheap as normal roof tiles. They're guaranteed. They look like normal tiles. And she wants me to get them, so we're getting them.
What were the thoughts back then? What were some of the comments? Let's say the internet is forever. This is a mere taste. It was like I said, electric cars were considered extremely impossible and stupid. And then now, things have changed.
Then that crawls up my spine. It raises hairs beneath my skin, the shadows in my mind.
Tesla They're not going anywhere. In fact, they're just getting started.
Okay, you can drive that fraud.